I don't disagree. I think that your budget for Pi, $50,000 is great. No budget. So that's independent. Other than something like that story, and one or two others I know of personally, I don't really believe that there is or ever was an independent film thing. I just really don't believe it exists like yeah.
What do you mean?
Because to make a film, you can make a film and have it you can, but then that's it. And nowadays it's even easier with digital to make a good film.
Yeah.
Take away the plot, I'm not that immersed. I'm not a student. But to get it out there, to get it to a festival, even a minor festival, takes an awful lot. And then to get any kind of distributorship or get it shown, other than the festival, takes an awful lot. And it's not independent being if you have a very wealthy patron, then, which is not that much different than the studio thing. I mean, the studio thing has always existed, just being a film, and that's that. And there have been times, artists for a story, etc. But I just don't, I'm a bit cynical on this. But I still don't believe the whole independent. I mean, like you guys did Pi, and Pi, all your films, I mean, that's why I'm doing it. Fucking great. And Pi, I always 50,000. I have buku respect. And I've got the and I saw it out of the woods downtown.
All right. Who is this guy? Just teasing. Yeah, I mean, there definitely was, there was this media attention on something called independent film, and it definitely became really, really popular, and a lot of people wanted to be involved with it, and, someone told me yesterday that there were, there was, tens of thousands of people at Sundance, and it peaked about 2-3 years ago, and it's not the same way it is, and so I'm just saying that those going to the cinema to see personal, more dramatic films seems to be, there's less and less opportunities to see those movies. And there's less and less interest to see those movies, and I think those films are hard to go. Like, it used to be 10 years ago, I'd say, go make a personal film. People are gonna want to see it.
Well, now it's also, a lot of the, independent financiers won't even finance your film until you have domestic distribution, and somehow that's still considered an independent film. I mean, there's a lot less people taking those risks, and I think that has a lot to do with how much more expensive an independent film has gotten to make. I mean, it's hard to make an independent film that's going to, have a really good shot at getting distribution for $50,000 or $60,000. They need real money now, and people are a lot less willing to risk it.
I don't think you can make you can't get money for a film, over $1 million without a North American distributor. I don't think so.
Or at least a real foreign backer with, potential for good foreign sales and foreign distribution to bank on. And even then, you're going to get a lot less than.
Yeah, but even us, we can't get it. We can't get money for a film unless we have a North American distributor.
Well, it depends on the amount of money. The Wrestler, we were able to, and I don't know if we'd be able to today.
Yeah.
But the films are making it more expensive now than the Wrestler was.
But the Wrestler wouldn't be made today.
That's what I'm saying.
You couldn't get the Wrestler made today, and it's 2-3 years later.
Yeah.
So I don't think we could have gotten $6 million for the Wrestler. That's how much it costs to make, and I don't think we could have gotten that in today's market. I mean, if we had Mickey of today, yeah, we could get the money.
Mickey of 4 years.
If we were trying to do a Wrestler 2 with Eric Roberts, it would be pretty hard.
I heard that you shot Black Swan on 16mm. I was wondering, what's your preferred film stock to use in your movies?
Well, I've used, I shot Super 16 on The Wrestler and on Black Swan, and I like it a lot. It's you can move, it's handheld, so you can move a lot easier and quicker. But you guys shouldn't be considering film at all. You guys should all be shooting on video. There's no reason to be shooting on film. I mean, there is, but you just, the amount of money you spend on it, you have to figure out a way to shoot on video and make the look of the video work for you. That's what you got to do. You got to tell stories, because I don't know, unless you have a lot of money somehow behind you, there's no real reason. But Super 16 I think looks great because it gives you film stocks on 35 have gotten so good that they, they don't have any kind of grunge to them. I still like the little grunge.
Yes. Oh, hi. About Requiem for a Dream. I gotta be honest, I've never seen the film, only like clips of it, but mostly like the opening credits with like the split screens and like certain scenes like that. And well, for me, it reminded me a little bit of like Rotting the Palm, especially with like Carrie, and he likes to do that a lot. And like as someone says in the credits, it kind of reminds me of like the atmosphere kind of reminds me of Fight Club a little bit. And I was wondering if you were there certain, if any, like cinematic influences you had on like any scenes in Requiem for a Dream?
Well, Fight Club I think came out after Requiem for a Dream. But I liked Fight Club. That was good. I think I'm sure there were lots of influences. The split screen didn't really come out of Brian De Palma, although I know he did a lot of that. But when I read the book, I remember the thing I loved about the book is that it was from the point of view of these characters, and you were really in their heads. And if you ever saw Pi, my first film, it was really inside one character's head. So I like the idea of then suddenly having four characters, because Requiem for a Dream has four characters, and being able to be in their head. When I read the book, that opening scene in the book, immediately I thought of a split screen as a way of kind of showing two different angles on the same scene. So I'm not. I didn't really copy. I didn't steal the idea from somewhere. It was an idea that came out of the novel. And then the kind of whole aesthetic of the film was a lot of ideas I was developing in Pi, but I didn't have the money to do in Pi. We had more time and a bigger team that could execute them. So there were all these, vibrating camera stuff that we do in the film, and which we did a little bit in Pi. But in Pi we just shook the camera, and in Requiem I think we actually digitally manipulate the image. But they were just sort of a bunch of different impressionistic ideas I wanted to bring to the camera to help tell the kind of get inside the character's head a little bit more.
What do you think is the significance of choosing New York as a setting for your dream? And do you think that certain, New York iconic images, such as choosing to show the Coney Island roller coaster, is a metaphor throughout the film?
Well, I grew up out there, and the book is actually set in the Bronx. And one of the first meetings I had with Hubert Selby Jr., the writer of the book, is I was like, I want to move it to Coney Island because that same culture works out there, yet I know it because I grew up out there. So, and I've always wanted to photograph Coney Island in a film. In fact, I did a bunch of documentaries as a kid where I walk around and shot the neighborhood. So I was able to put a lot of that work I did as a teenager and a college student into a movie, and that's why I shot it there. I mean, it is a very, it's Selby, the writer, really based it with New York characters, and if anything, I tried to make them a little less New York. So.
I had a quick question about the wrestler and Mickey Rourke's role in that, and trying to decide between the six of them. I guess just personally, do you ever find it odd that the film itself is a story about an over-the-hill wrestler that has this little rise of prominence, and then with Rourke it's kind of a similar thing, a guy that was big in the 80s, went to boxing, dropped off for 20 years, and then came back. I was just wondering if that's kind of an ironic thing for you as a director and a casting choice.
Well, we were aware of Mickey's story. I think when we first started working on the film, who would you want for it?
I watched for it. I like Ray Liotta.
He wanted Ray Liotta. He's like, nah, not Mickey, Ray.
Well, you didn't want Mickey yet.
Well, who was I into?
I don't think you were, it was open.
Yeah. We didn't write, the idea for the film didn't come up with Mickey, but then I think when the second writer came on after Scott had written a few drafts, Rob Siegel. By then we knew we were thinking about Mickey. And so he had a picture of Mickey over his computer, and he definitely brought Mickey's story into it. But we were excited by that because, once again, it's something to write about.
Me? I'm sorry. Could you talk a little bit more about how you prepared for The Wrestler? Like, did you go to matches or anything like that?
Yeah, we did a lot of research. Me and Scott were big fans back in the day. Scott was a bigger fan than I was. That's true, though. You were even a fan recently. You used to watch Raw.
I lived with Chad.
Yeah. He had a roommate that was this, maybe he wasn't that big and fat. He was probably only like 170, but he kind of was the big fat. And we used to tell him he should be, what was his name? Whitey Tighty. Tighty Whitey, go out with a pair of tighty whities and cape. That should be his wrestling guy. So that was his roommate. So they watched a lot of wrestling. That's why I was excited to get Scott involved, because he had been watching it for a long time. And I had I watched it a long time ago when, even before Hulk Hogan was the champion. So, and then when we started going, when we started really getting into it, we went to a lot of matches. And we actually went to some hardcore matches, like you see in the film, which really exist out in Philly, and in extreme places they do some of that stuff. So, and we were like, oh, we got to put this stuff into the film. And they were pretty, the wrestlers really. It was interesting because the wrestlers completely opened up their arms for us to be be a part of it, part of their world, and they pretty much gave us full access.
They were great. I mean, they were teddy bears. Some of the nicest guys we worked. A lot easier to work with than ballerinas.
Yeah, that's the point. The ballet world couldn't give a shit about movies and letting us into their world, and they were much bigger flakes than the wrestlers. So you guys have dancers here, right? You know what I'm talking about.